All right, hello, this is Jeff Scott of Oregon Technical College. And what I'm going to do right now is basically replicate what I created for the key for the last JavaScript hot or hands-on test for chapters 7 and 8. The class is AWD1000. All right, so I've got this file right here, and I'm just going to create a brand new file that I want to call. I'll call it test.js. Whoops. All right, so right now I do have this created, but you'll notice that if I do a run, and I tell it to run it in Chrome, and I click calculate, nothing happens. Failed to load, error file not found, because it isn't there. All right, so we're just going to take this whole thing from the top. I'm going to create a brand new file, and let's just save it right away. And we'll save it as test.js. All right, now I could run the program again, and I wouldn't get an error message, but nothing would happen because there's nothing in the file. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything here. Not everything, but everything as far as what you were supposed to create for the test. All right, so I'm going to create all that, grab all that, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in. And it's going to take 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute, to pretty this up a little bit. But I want it in such a way that I can read it. Hopefully no one is timing me if it does take more than a minute to do, but it shouldn't take too much more than that. It's more than half done already. What I'm going to try to do is attempt to follow all of these steps in turn to, again, create a key for this particular test. And I'm going to do everything, even though I realize that many of you probably didn't have enough time to write this as 3 different functions or whatever. I'm going to do it like this anyway, because that's what I asked you to do. So if I'm going to ask you to do something, I should at least be able to write the same thing myself. Oops. Just about finished. These 4 lines here, pretty them up a little, and then we're done. All right. Now, I'm not going to lie to you either, and I don't know if any of you had time to do the extra credit that was here, but I didn't do the extra credit. I just put it in there on the off chance that someone got this done early and they wanted to work on something else, where they maybe could have gotten a few more extra points. Okay, so now I've copied in all of the comments from the test. Now, I'm in my apartment, so when the heat goes on in a couple minutes, I'll probably have to shut this down for a couple minutes because it's so loud that it would be very hard, if not impossible, for you to hear what I was keying in. All right, but I'll keep going until it indeed does turn on. So I'm going to hit enter quite a few times here. Okay. And I'm going to declare and initialize the program constants. I asked you to use constants. I have no idea because I haven't started grading them yet if people did or not, but this is what I have. So const, and I called it stop, and I set it equal to minus 999. And that was the program stop value. All right. Then I I've got min grade. You already know what that is. The minimum grade you could get was a test. On the test, rather. And here comes the heat. All right, so I will pause for just a moment here. All right, the heat has gone off, so I will continue on. And I just put in here 0, which was the minimum allowable grade. Then we'll have max grade. Remember that the grades must be between 0 and 100. So again, that's the maximum allowable grade. Then I also created some constants, which I called min A, which was the smallest grade you could have gotten and still gotten an A. And I just put for a comment here, minimum grade for A. And let's just copy this. So we've got A, B, C, D, F. In fact, I didn't even need one for an F, so that's one too many. So I've got min A, I've got min B, min C, and min D. That will become a D, a C, and not a V, but a B. So that's 90, that's 80, that is 70, and that is 60. Now, one of the things that was in your specifications was the fact that the number that you read in should be an integer. That's why I didn't worry about like an 89.7, etc. I just didn't worry about stuff like that. So now I'm going to have my declare and initialize program variables. I thought it would have been easier for this test to just basically make all the variables global. Maybe not the best policy, but that's the way that I did it. So var scores equal and bracket bracket, and that's the array which holds all valid scores. And there's actually then going to be a var A grades. Maybe being a little too anal here as far as lining stuff up, but and that's the array holding all grades which are greater than or equal to 90. A, B, C, D, F. So we'll have our B grades, our C grades, our D grades, and our F grades. So this will hold all grades between 80 and 89, between 70 and 79, between 60 and 69, and finally this will hold all grades that are less than 60. So those are our arrays. Let's change this one to program array variables. It's a little more information than we needed to put in, but that's fine. Whoops. All right. And these will be the program, and I'm just going to call them other variables. So these are the non-arrays. All right. So I've got var, I called it n grade. That's the numerical grade that we're about to read in. And we'll set that equal to 0. So again, that is the number grade. And remember, valid if between 0 and 100. We're going to have a var L grade, and that's going to be the letter grade. So we'll set that equal to basically that's the letter grade. And again, its valid values are A, B, C, D, and F. And then we're going to have our counters. Var tot A grades. Oh, I got that there, but I did. And that will be the total number of A grades. And again, as I've done before, I'm just going to go and copy this. So we'll have our total B grades, our total C grades, our total D grades. Let's see. And somehow I got that in there twice. Now that one will become my total F grades. So that's total number of A grades, total number of B grades, total number of C grades, total number of D grades, and total number of F grades. Now those are all of my variables. So let's just take one more quick look. I've got 7 program constants. My stop variable, this is my sentinel value, which says I'm done with input. And that was -999 as per the program requirements. My minimum and my maximum allowable grade, which were 0 and 100. So the minimum grade I could get to get an A would be 90. The minimum grade I could get to make a B would be 80. The minimum grade I could get to make a C would be 70. And the minimum grade I could get for a D would be 60. All right, so those were my constants. Here are my program array variables. So I have an array called scores, which will hold all of the valid array scores read in. Then my A grades, which will hold all the grades I read in, which are greater than or equal to 90. Then my Bs, which will hold all grades between 80 and 89. My C grades, which will hold all the grades between 70 and 79. My D grades, which will hold all grades between 60 and 69. And my F grades, which will hold all grades less than 60. All right, and then finally I've got all my non-array grades. N grade, which is going to be the numerical grade or number grade that I read in, and the only way it's valid is if it's between 0 and 100. My L grade, which will be my calculated letter grade. Which again will come out to be either an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. So these are my counters right here. So we'll call these, they're not really counters, they're accumulators. So that's my total number of A grades accumulator, total B grades accumulator, total C grades accumulator, total D grades accumulator, and total F grades accumulator. All right, so far I haven't met any of the requirements, but the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to, so I'm going to do this in main. So each score that gets read in has got to be numeric between 0 and 100 or -999 to quit or end my inputs. I want to ignore it if it's not between 0 and 100 or -999. So if it's non-numeric or if it's less than 0 or if it's greater than 100, I want to ignore it. I will use a prompt statement for my input. As the score is read in, I'll validate it to make sure it is within this range, here or here. If it is, I'll add it to the array called scores. So this will be my driver. So this will be the first 20 points of the test. So function main And as always, there are a lot of ways that this could be done. I'm just showing you the way that I did it. So, let's even put some, we'll put a lot of comments in here. I've already started to. Oops. So the first thing I want to do is what I call the priming read of the first number grade. So I'm going to say n grade equals, I want to do a parse int and a prompt. Oops. Make sure, there we go. And what the prompt will say is, please enter a grade between, and I made this kind of big, so plus sign here. Min grade, and max grade. Or to end the program now. So let's run this just to see right now, just to see what we have. I'm not worried right now. I'm not worried at all about writing my validation or anything. I just want to see right now what it looks like if I run this. So, got my test. There's my test. So run. Something it doesn't like. It says line 86, missing paren. Thought I put in enough parens, but let's check. Nope. Need my second one right there. And as you know, no, I don't. Paren. Oh, I don't want this. That was goofed up. So I do need two of them here. There we go. All right, so let's run it again. Still says something's missing. Didn't I save it? Yes, I did. Paren. Parse int, prompt, please enter a grade between plus, oh, I'm missing a plus sign there, as you can see. All right. I think that's everything. So we'll save it one more time. Try to run it again. Still. Percent. There's that, and there's that. Prompt. Please enter a grade between min grade and, oops, there's another one I need. Plus sign there, max grade, or stop to end the program now. I'm getting there. So there it is. Please enter a grade between 0 and 100 or negative 999 to end the program now. It doesn't matter what I put in, it's going to end it because I have not, as of right now, I have not done any validation. So that's all we've got so far. So now we have to validate. We have to validate the number grade we just read in. Let's do this. Let's put in a space here. All right, so we're going to validate now. So while that grade is not equal to stop, now if it is equal to stop, we want to get out. We have nothing more to do here. Okay. So I'm actually going to change, oops, I want that there. What we don't want to do right now is not to validate the number yet. So I am going to remove that, but I'm going to change this to check for end of input. In other words, minus 999. So that's what I'm doing here. Now I want to come in and validate the number grade we just read in. Okay? So I want to say while. And again, there are different ways this could be done. This is the way I did it. While it's not numeric, end grade. So that's one possibility. Or end grade is less than min grade. So if I read in a negative number, or end grade is greater than max grade. In other words, now I've read in a number that's over 100. Looks like I need one more. There we go. So while any of those things are the case, okay, what do I want to do? Not really a whole lot. What I want to do is I want to grab this line right here, this end grade, and I want to just read in, read in the next grade because I'm going to skip this grade. All right. So I'm just going to grab this. Now I could put an alert in here if I wanted to. Okay. So I could say alert, invalid input. Please try again. Something like that. I mean, I can put in whatever I like to put in, but that's more than sufficient. Now I can paste this in. So I'm going to ask them again to read it in. So let's check. All we're checking here is to make sure that if we put in something non-numeric or less than 0 or greater than 100, it comes back with invalid input and it asks us to do it again. So let's check. So I'm going to run this again. Oops, I don't want to run that. Let's just run it from here. Okay, so I'm going to try to put in something non-numeric. There's my alert with my invalid input, and it's asking me to do it again. Let's try a negative number. There's my alert, and it's telling me to do it again. Let's try a number greater than 100. Okay, and again, it's invalid. Now, if I put in something that is valid, nothing's going to happen because I haven't told anything to happen yet. All right? So, once we get down to this point, the grade has been validated to be between 0 and 100. So I want to add the grade to the scores array. Move that up a little bit, okay? And there are different ways that we can do this, but I'm going to say scores.push, end grade. So now that scores array should hold the grade. Okay? All right. I'm sorry, my heat's coming on again. So I will again have to pause. All right, that was not very long. So now the next thing that I want to do here is I want to calculate the letter grade based on the valid number grade. All right, So I'm just going to make the function call here. So I called it calculate letter grade. And I'm not going to worry about writing that right now. So I'm just going to put in here function calculate letter grade. So for now, they'll just be my begin and my end. There. That's all that's there. All right. So finally, the next thing I want to do here is I want to input the next grade. Well, I don't have to go and rewrite this because I already have it right here. Now, this program is far from finished. But again, let's save it and run it and see what we have. So you know, if I put in garbage, I get the message and it tells me to do it again. If I put in something negative, same thing. If I put in something positive, same thing. Okay? Now, if I do put in a valid value, okay, it's not doing anything else. Oops. What do we got here? Well, got something the system doesn't like right now, so let's check. It's calling calculate letter grade. Probably should have just had a return in there. I don't know if that's what goofed it up or not. I have no idea. Let's try it one more time and see if... Now, I'm not going to run it again and put in, you know, the negative number and everything. I already did that, so 44. Okay? Well, still, there's something that it doesn't like here. It says it's running a memory, which typically means I'm in some kind of a loop. While end grade not equal to stop. Should have not equal to stop, I guess, but that's not going to... Let's fix that. All right, well, let's just keep going on and see if we can... Not that if it fixes itself, but let's just see what happens here. So, for each grade... problem is too. Let's see. Calculate the letter grade. This input the next grade, that should be, that actually is correct the way it is. But I'm looking here, I got a while and that. This next grade, this right here, I've got another while in here. Right, calculate my letter grade. This one should be inside of the loop. That's what that should look like. So this should be moved over. So should this. Now, again, not sure if that fixed the problem I had, but I'm going to try just to be sure. Again, non-numeric. Okay, too big, okay, too small, okay, valid grade. That's what I want. It read in that grade, and it should be in the scores array now, and now it's asking me for a new grade. Minus 999, does that get me out? Yes, it does. Okay, so far, so good. Everything appears to be working as it should. All right, so for each numeric grade, calculate the associated letter grade and I also want to, for lack of better words, we'll say, we'll say here, put the number grade into the corresponding array. For example, A grades. Okay? All right. So, if the number grade, now we already know that it's valid, so if the number grade is greater than or equal to min A, meaning greater than or equal to 90, all right, so we know it's an A. We want to do two things. We want to push that onto the corresponding array, and we want to take our total, our total A grades, and we want to increment it. Okay? So if the grade is greater than or equal to 90, we want to push it onto the A grades array and add 1 to our total A grades counter. The good news is we want to do this 5 times. Okay, so if it's an A, we want to do this. Else, if it's a B, we want to do this. Else, if it's a C, we want to do this. Fixing these comments. Min A, min A, min B, min B, min C, min C. All right, else, it looks like I've got one too many of these, so I'll get rid of that one. So that's up to C. Else, if it's a D, which means that it's greater than or equal to 60. We need D here. We need D here. We need to push it onto the D grades array, and we need to increment our total D grades counter. And I just left this as finally an else. All right, so the grade is less than a 60. Okay, so else, I'm just going to say here begin else and end else. All right, so we want to push it onto the F grades array, and we want to add 1 to our total F grades. So I went through that quickly, but it should hopefully at least make sense to you. If the grade was greater than or equal to 90, we want to push it onto the A grade array and add 1 to our A grades counter. If it hits the else, it can't be, it's got to be less than 90. So if it's greater than or equal to 80, we want to push it onto the B grade array and add 1 to our B grades counter. If it's not greater than 90 and it's not greater than 80, then we want to check to see if it's greater than or equal to 70. And if it is, we want to push it onto our C grades array and add 1 to our C grades accumulator. If it's not that, then we want to check to see if it's greater than or equal to 60. If it is, we want to push it onto the D grades array and add 1 to the D grades counter. If we get down to the final F, final else I should say, that means it had to have been less than 60, so it's an F. So F, F, D, 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 C, 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 C. Make sure I didn't miss anything here. B, that's a V. I don't know how I got that, but B, 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 A, 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 A. So it looks like it's correct. And again, I like to keep checking it here to make sure I'm not breaking anything. There's still more work to do. So again, outer range, non-numeric, blank, all right, valid, oops, sorry, valid, uh-oh. All right, it looked like it took everything the way that it should. Oops, that's going to be invalid. Minus 999. All right, now it doesn't like my minus 999. Minus 999. It says invalid input. Please try again. We're going to have to fix that. Okay, it's getting there though. So going back to the program, one thing I wanted to do in my main, okay, after I calculate the letter grade and after I read in the next grade, eventually I'm going to jump out of this loop. So I want to call my routine, which is going to print the grade information. All right. So I called it, maybe it's a long name, but I called it print arrays and biggest and smallest. And whoops. And I'm going to call this 5 times. And each time I'm going to pass it in the appropriate array and the corresponding letter grade. Okay, so print arrays and biggest and smallest. So I'm going to call it once with the B grades, once with the C grades, once with the D grades, and once with the F grades. And this will be A, B, C, D, and F. All right, so I'm going to call that, grab that so I don't misspell it. Okay, so now I'm going to write that down here. I don't want to call these A grades an A, but I'm going to call this ARR for array. You can call it whatever you want. Of course, it doesn't really matter, but that's just what I happen to be calling it. All right. And then I call the other thing, I called it letter. Okay, but again, you don't have to call them those, of course. You can call whatever you think makes the most sense to you. Okay, so I put a bunch of things in here as headings. So I'm going to say var heading 1 equals var heading 2 equals, and I actually had 5 of these. Var heading 3 equals var heading 4 equals, sounds like my heat's going to go on again, and var heading 5 equals. All right. So as always, I'll put a little thing here. I'm going to say this, declare and initialize local variables. All right, so I didn't want these to be blank. This one is going to say the contents of array. So that'll say either the contents of array A, the contents of array B, etc. The smallest element in array, the largest element in array, the average, and then finally there were a total of. So these are my headings that I'm going to use. This is going to be when I print out all my final information. Didn't have to do it like this. There's no reason really that you have to create variables to do this. All right, there goes my heat. Sorry. So far, I have come in and I have written my main. This is too big now. I increased my font size, so I've written my main, and that was 20 points of the test value. Okay, so that's done. And again, as I mentioned, I am writing this program one way that it should have been written. I'm not going to say it's the best way. It's definitely not the only way. It is the way that I chose. So I wrote the program. You already saw the input had to be numeric, and it had to either be between 0 and 100 or negative 999 to end the program. We ignored the invalid inputs. We used a prompt statement. As each score was read in, we did this. You can't see it yet, but we added all the valid scores to an array named scores. All right, this was done in a JavaScript function. This was our driver. So if you got that done, you would have gotten 20 points for that part. Then, as mentioned here, we came in and we created the 5 different arrays, which were A grades, B grades, C grades, D grades, and F grades. Okay, and from main then, we went in and we called that calculate letter grade, which was going to figure out, based on the number grade that we put in, what the corresponding letter grade was. All right, and it was also going to add 1 to that particular letter grade counter. So we've also done that. So that's another 20 points. So far, we've done 20, 40 points out of our test. Now is the more hard part, for lack of better words. So what we want to do now is, after each score has been inputted into its respective grades array, we want to use our looping constructs, and we want to print out the contents of each array, the highest score in each array, the lowest score in each array, the calculated average score for each array, and the total number of grades in that array. All right, and we're supposed to write that as a JavaScript function. Rather, we're supposed to write it as 3 different JavaScript functions. One, which we used our own code. One, which is going to end up using sort and or reverse. And one where we're going to use apply. And we did go over that in class in the array example that I did for you. All right, get one function to work, then comment it out, then get the next one to work and comment it out. Get the last function to work, don't comment it out. All right, other than part A above, use built-in JavaScript array methods whenever possible. You saw how I used the push method, for example. Okay, so So we looked at it. We declared constants. We declared our arrays. We declared our other variables that were going to be global to the program. We created main where we did our priming read to read in our first value. All right. And then while it's not equal to stop, which we set, did we set that? Yes, to -999. All right. Then we had our while loop to do our validation. If it was invalid, we gave them a message and we just went on. But if it got down to here, it was valid, so we pushed it onto the scores array. Then we called calculate letter grade, which came in and said if it was greater than or equal to 90, push it onto the A array and add 1 to the A counter. Otherwise, if it was greater than or equal to 80, push it onto the B array and add 1 to the B's counter. Otherwise, if it was greater than or equal to 70, push it onto the C grades array and add 1 to the total C grades accumulator. Otherwise, if it was greater than or equal to 60, push it onto the D grades array and add 1 to the total D grades accumulator. Otherwise, push it onto the F grades array and add 1 to the F grades. All right, so whatever one of those we did is based on what was here. And we inputted our next grade. Eventually, we'll fall out of the loop, so we will call this routine that we're about to write for the first of 3, print arrays in biggest and smallest, where we're passing an A, B, C, D, or F, an A, B, C, D, or F. All right, I created a bunch of headings here, and I'm just going to continue on. So I had another variable here that I just called string, and I set that up, for lack of better words, to just be equal to the empty string. All right. Var len, which is going to be my length, and I set that equal to 0. See if I can pretty these up just a tad. Looks better. And I don't want length there, I just wanted that to be len. All right, length is a key word, so I don't want to use that. Var avg, which I'm setting equal to 0.0. Var sum, which will be the sum of all of the array elements, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. Var largest, now you may remember this little trick here. We're going to set that equal to our first array element. And we're going to have var smallest, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set that equal to our first array element. This is something I showed you in the programs that we did in class. All right. So now I'm going to declare my uninitialized variables. And I put a little note here that said note, these variables have been purposely left uninitialized. Good enough. Each will be set programmatically before they are used. Okay? All right, so I'm going to have a few more variables that I set here. I'll give you those in just a sec. There are about 4 of them. Sorry, I'm losing my place on my notes here. For right now, I'm only going to have one variable in this particular example, and it's going to be var LCV, which is, as you know, my loop control variable. All right. So the length that was here, I don't need to set it to 0. I can set it, I want it to be the length of my array, so that's going to be array, arr.length, -1. You'll see why the -1 in just a minute. And the string here, I want to set that equal to heading 1 plus the letter plus, so this will say something along the lines of the contents of the contents of array A, the contents of array B, the contents of array C, the contents of array D, or the contents of array F. All right, so I've got all those. All right, what I wanted to do, and this was maybe it's just a little analness in me, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to set this up. I wanted to set it up in such a way that, to me, it read as good as it could possibly read. Again, you may not agree. You know, you might look at what I'm doing here and say that you don't agree at all with the way I did this or the way I did that, and that's fine. But what I decided to do here was I wanted to set it up so that it would print out the contents of each array element followed by a comma, except for the last one, because I didn't want a comma at the end, because I thought that would look a little unprofessional. So I said here, string plus equals ARR. So in other words, put the current array element in there, plus a comma and a space. So that's going to print out the first, all the elements in the array except the last one. All right, plus I want to add that to my sum too. So sum plus equals, array LCV. Okay. Now, when I get down to here, all that's left now is the last element. So I'm going to say string plus equal array LCV plus, and I put a couple of line breaks in there just so it looked a little nicer. And I still have to add that final value to my sum accumulator. All right. That's all fine. That's going to handle all of those. But now that I've got the array filled, I'm just going to copy this. So let's put a message, we'll put a comment here that says add each array element to the string followed by a comma, except for the last element. Okay, so that'll do that. Now, also add the array's numeric value to the sum variable. All right, so I'm going to copy these comments here. I'm going to put them here. So I want to add the last array element to the string, and there will not be followed by a comma. Also, I want to add the array's numeric value to the sum variable. All right, so that's all done. Now, I want to determine the largest and the smallest of the array values. Okay, so this is going to be a for loop. I'm just going to loop through it, and I've already got my value for my largest and smallest here. So I want to check the current array value against the largest and smallest. But now when I do the for loop, I don't want to start with array element 0 because I already have it in there. I want to say LCV equal 1, LCV less than or equal to that length, LCV plus plus. And is this a lot of work? Yeah, you had 4 hours to do it, but yes, it is. So, if the current array element, if it's less than smallest, it's now the new smallest. So we're going to say here new smallest element. So we want to say smallest equals ARR LCV. Now, we want to do the exact same thing again, but we want to say if it's greater than largest. If that's the case, we've got a new largest. So we'll say largest here. All right, my heat just went on again, so I'm going to stop one more time. All right. All right, so I'm going to continue on. Oops. There. All right. So now I should have determined my largest and my smallest. I should have all the information I need, so I just want to print it out. So that'll print out my smallest. And that will print out my largest. This is going to be my average, so I actually set it up and I'll put that on the next line so you can still read it. Whoop, that should be plus equals, not plus minus. So this should be the sum divided by the array length. Oops. Dot to fixed, and I put it to 2 decimal places, plus a couple more line breaks. So this will print out how many grades were in the particular array. And I guess I really don't even need those. And then I just did an alert of string. String is probably not the best word to use here just because of the fact, and I can change it, but since I've got it already as string, I'll leave it there. But the point is, the word string is a keyword in some other languages. So instead of string, you might see like str. So let's try. Let's take this for a spin and see if our first one works, or if I somehow made some mistakes keying stuff in. Looks already like I did. Looks like I could be in a loop, an infinite loop. So, not good. When I get into a loop like that, the first thing I do is I check my loops themselves to see if they're goofed up. So, read in this. Okay, the parens look okay. It's not equal to stop. Good. Well, actually, this should have been here, which means I'll put one less here. That's what I wanted. And then this, and then this, and then that. So that's okay. Push, calculate. Again, I'm just checking my parentheses here. Print biggest and smallest, A, B, C, D, F, A, B, C, D, F. That looks okay. Calculate letter grade. That all looks okay as far as I can tell. Here's my print arrays and biggest and smallest, ARR and letter. That looks okay. Oh, sorry. All right, so I'm not sure if I have any errors in here. I hope I don't. I didn't see anything, but string. In worst case, I could just go out and post the one I've already done, but I'm trying to replicate it right now, and I'm trying to figure out what the problem was, and I don't see anything, but all right, 34, 40, 50. Those should be 3 grades that I've just put in that are all Fs. Let's try 100, 99, 91. Those are A's. 80, 82, 88. Those should be B's. 77, 74, 71. Those should be C's. 60, 69, 65. Those should be D's. Now, hopefully the minus 999 will work here. Well, there's a problem with that, evidently. Hit F12. It says their array is not defined on line 205, so let's check that out. Oh, there's a problem. It should say ARR. Okay, hopefully, and all these should also. That should be ARR. That should be ARR. Hopefully I found them all now. So let's try running it one more time. Oops. All right, so 50, 55, 58, those are my F's, 60, 65, 66, those are my D's, 70, 77, 79, those are my C's, 80, 85, 89, those are my B's, 90, 100, 100. Those are my A's minus 999. All right, so the contents 90, 100, and 100. The smallest is 90, the largest is 100. The average is these three together, divided by 3, which is here, and there were a total of 3 A's. Our B's, the average was an 84.67. There were 3 of those, 80 being the highest, 89 being the highest, 80 being the lowest. For the C's, the average was a 75.33. There were 3 of them. 70 was the lowest, 79 was the highest. For D's, 60, 65, and 66. So the average was a 63.67. The lowest was at 60, the highest was a 66. And for the F's, the average was a 54.33, the lowest being 50, the highest being 58. All right, so that all works now. So going back, and you know what, I've decided that maybe this was just too much for me to expect from you. So I am going to go and do this the 2 other ways, but I'm not going to take off. If you got yours to work and you only did it one way, I'm not going to take off for it all. I have not started grading these yet. So I'm now done for part 3. I have done all this stuff. All right, I've done all that, but I've only done part A here. So I'm going to stop taping now, and I'm going to come back and rewrite this twice in these 2 things. All right, one using the built-in sort and reverse, and one using the prototype apply. Now, to try to make my life a little easier, I'm going to go down to this function right here, this print arrays and biggest and smallest, and I'm going to comment the whole thing out. Then I'm going to copy the whole inside of it that I just put in here. So I'm going to copy every bit of it, and I'm going to put it down here. And when I come back, because I'm already over an hour, and I shouldn't be really, it's almost an hour and 10 minutes already. So when I come back, I'm going to fix this one. So I'm going to make changes to this print arrays and biggest and smallest. And this time, instead of writing my own min-max, I'm going to call the sort and or reverse functions. So I'll be back to do that shortly.